Listen up. And I mean really listen, because I'm about to drop some truth that most people are too scared to say out loud. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what I'm about to tell you. Before we dive deep, I need you to take off whatever political hat you're wearing. This isn't about red versus blue or left versus right. This is about something much bigger that affects every single one of us, regardless of who you voted for. What happened with the Supreme Court's final verdict on Donald Trump isn't just another political headline to scroll past. This is a defining moment that reveals what kind of country we actually are underneath all the noise. Moments like this, where there's no appeal left, no more legal tricks, no more delays, these are the moments that separate the real from the fake. In the investment world, we have a saying, when the tide goes out, you find out who's been swimming naked. That applies to institutions, systems, and entire democracies. When the pressure comes, when there's nowhere left to hide, that's when the masks come off. Courts don't just wake up and decide to make history because they're bored. The judicial system moves slowly, weighing evidence, examining precedent going back decades. So when a Supreme Court reaches a final decision with no appeal left, this wasn't some rush job or political theater. This was a process that consumed enormous time, energy, and scrutiny. A lot of folks are asking what this means for Trump specifically. But I need you to zoom out. In business, if you're only staring at one stock price, you're missing the health of the entire market. This ruling isn't just about one man, no matter how famous or polarizing. This is about whether the rules apply consistently. This is about whether power has limits. This is about whether we're a nation of laws or a nation of men. Trust is the most valuable asset any system can have. In the financial world, once trust disappears, capital doesn't walk, it runs. In society, once trust disappears, stability erodes and cooperation breaks down. So when a Supreme Court issues a verdict with no legal path forward, it's sending a signal that the rule book still exists and still matters. I know emotions are running hot right now. Some feel relieved, others feel angry, betrayed, confused. That's normal. Every major turning point creates emotional volatility. But reacting emotionally in moments of historic change almost always leads to poor decisions. The winners are those who pause, assess, and understand the broader implications before making moves they can't take back. Think about what no appeal left truly means. The legal process has reached its end. There are no more extensions, no more delays. Whether you agree with the outcome or not, finality has weight to it. Finality forces adaptation and accountability. Finality forces a country to look at itself in the mirror. Strong nations are not defined by leaders who never face consequences. That's weakness disguised as power. Strong nations are defined by systems that function even when the outcome is uncomfortable, even when half the country is upset. If rules only apply when they're convenient, they aren't rules. They're suggestions, and suggestions don't protect markets, democracies, or your children's future. Accountability is a word everyone loves until it shows up at their door. Everyone supports it in theory until it applies to someone they admire or voted for. Then suddenly the system is rigged. But real accountability doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't care about popularity polls. That's how functioning systems survive over time. I've watched companies rise and fall because leadership believed they were bigger than the rules. At first, bending rules feels harmless. Then it becomes routine. Eventually, it becomes culture. By the time reckoning arrives, everyone acts shocked, not because it happened, but because they convinced themselves it never could. A Supreme Court reaching a final verdict is doing more than resolving a single dispute. It's setting a boundary, saying to everyone watching, this is where the line is drawn. Cross it and there will be consequences. Boundaries are uncomfortable, but they're essential. Without them, chaos creeps in slowly, disguised as exception after exception, until one day there are no rules left at all. Systems are strengthened when they prove they can function under stress. Any machine operates well when conditions are perfect. The real test comes when pressure is applied, when emotions run high, when millions are upset with the outcome. Can the system hold? Can it finish what it started? Markets don't fear bad news as much as they fear uncertainty. Bad news can be planned for and adapted to, but uncertainty paralyzes everything. When investors don't know what rules will apply tomorrow, they stop investing today. Nations work the same way. Prolonged legal battles and unresolved questions create instability with real economic, social, and psychological costs. A final ruling, even a controversial one, provides clarity. And clarity, while sometimes painful, allows societies to move forward. Every final decision leaves behind a footprint that future generations will see. Future leaders, courts, and citizens will look back and ask what happened when power was challenged. Did the system bend to pressure or stand firm? Precedent doesn't announce itself with fanfare, it whispers. But over time, those whispers shape behavior more than any speech ever could. Accountability is not revenge. It's not about humiliation or erasing someone's legacy. It's about maintaining the integrity of the structure we all rely on. When a CEO steps down after a ruling, the goal isn't to destroy the company, but to protect it. This isn't about one man, it's about the system that allows millions to live, work, and dream in relative peace. The most dangerous idea in any society is the belief that certain individuals are untouchable. Once that belief takes root, trust decays, and trust, once lost, is incredibly expensive to rebuild. Now let's talk about confidence. In investing, confidence isn't built on excitement or charismatic personalities. It's built on predictability, transparency, and consistent rules. When those elements weaken, capital hesitates and regular people suffer. Public confidence is the invisible currency that keeps everything moving. Power handled responsibly strengthens confidence. Power without limits creates anxiety and eventually cynicism. A final Supreme Court verdict sends a message to markets, institutions, and citizens worldwide. The framework still works. You may disagree with the outcome, but knowing that decisions can reach a conclusion, that nobody is truly above the system, creates stability. Uncertainty spreads faster than fear. It freezes you because you don't know which way to run. When people don't know what rules will apply tomorrow, they delay decisions today. Prolonged political limbo carries real costs, even if they don't show up in headlines. Long-term markets reward systems that prove they can self-correct. No system is perfect. What matters is whether it can recognize stress, apply rules consistently, and move forward without collapsing. That's the real test, not perfection, but resilience. Public confidence comes from process, not perfection. When people believe the process is fair, even outcomes they dislike become tolerable. I've lost money on investments where I respected the rules more than the results. That discipline has served me far better than chasing short-term wins. Future leaders are watching this moment closely, learning what happens when authority meets accountability. Are consequences theoretical or real? The answer will shape behavior for decades. When leaders see accountability enforced consistently, behavior becomes responsible. When they see rules are flexible for the powerful, recklessness grows. The world is always watching. Investors from Tokyo to London to Dubai assess how stable our systems are. A nation that enforces its own rules, even on its most powerful citizens, signals reliability, and reliability is priceless. Power is temporary, but systems are supposed to be permanent. When systems bend too easily to power, they weaken. When they hold their shape, when rules apply to everyone, they endure and grow stronger. That endurance gives people confidence to invest belief in the future. This moment also educates future leaders. Every executive and politician is asking what happens when power collides with limits. True leadership reveals itself when constraints appear, when accountability cannot be postponed. This verdict reminds every leader that authority is conditional, not absolute. One of leadership's most dangerous habits is confusing popularity with immunity. Applause creates the illusion that being loved means being untouchable. I've seen executives fall into this trap, surrounded by people who tell them what they want to hear. Eventually, reality intervenes. The long game matters most. Short-term wins tempt leaders to stretch rules. For a while, that appears successful. But systems that survive generations are built by people who respect guardrails, even when it limits their immediate power. The long game requires accepting constraints today to preserve credibility tomorrow. Reputations are built slowly but can be damaged in a single moment. Trust takes decades to build and seconds to destroy. Humility means understanding your role within something larger than yourself. When leaders think of themselves as the organization rather than its servant, systems begin revolving around individuals rather than principles. That's when instability sets in. Young people watching are forming their understanding of how power works. They're asking whether rules are flexible for the powerful and rigid for everyone else. The answer they observe will influence whether they grow up believing in institutions or distrusting them entirely. No system becomes stronger by celebrating punishment. Strength comes from reinforcing standards and showing the same rules apply to everyone. Accountability is corrective, not destructive. It's medicine, not poison. The most important question isn't what happened, but what leaders learn from it. Will future leaders respect boundaries earlier or push harder, believing they can avoid consequences? That depends on how consistently standards are applied going forward. This moment will fade from headlines quickly, but the lessons embedded in it will remain, shaping decisions quietly long after public attention moves on. As we conclude, big events pull us toward extremes, but the most valuable insights live in the quiet space between them. Most historic moments didn't change everything the way people expected. What truly shapes the future isn't the headline itself, but how institutions and citizens behave after it fades. This verdict represents an ending, but also a beginning. Endings force clarity and remove the illusion that time alone solves unresolved issues. Clarity, while uncomfortable, is necessary for progress. Stability isn't the absence of disagreement. It's the presence of processes that can absorb disagreement without breaking. Debate and dissent are healthy. What matters is whether the system channels those emotions constructively. Trust is slow to build and fast to lose. It's created by consistency, not slogans. When people believe rules apply to everyone, trust grows. When they believe exceptions exist for the powerful, trust evaporates. Everything else rests on that foundation. Don't let emotion define your long-term outlook. Short-term reactions rarely capture long-term reality. Societies that respect process outperform those that rely on personalities. Focus on what remains when everything else changes. Leaders come and go, court cases end, public opinion shifts, but institutions, when protected, remain. They are the compounding asset of a nation. Neglect them and the cost is enormous. Protect them and the returns are measured in generations. Citizens have responsibility too. How people talk about this verdict matters. How they respond to disagreement matters. Systems don't collapse overnight. They erode slowly when respect disappears and norms are violated. Strong societies don't require uniform agreement. They require shared commitment to the rules that govern disagreement. That commitment is tested most severely when outcomes feel personal and unfair. Passing that test doesn't require silence, but restraint, accepting outcomes while working to change things through legitimate means. The most productive question isn't who won or lost. It's what did the system prove it could do? If it proved it could reach a conclusion, enforce boundaries, and continue operating under pressure, that's resilience. And resilience sustains nations over time. History will judge this moment with distance none of us have today. But history is shaped by what happens next, by whether principles are reinforced, by whether people choose understanding over outrage. Progress doesn't come from tearing systems down every time they produce discomfort. It comes from strengthening systems so they can withstand pressure, self-correct, and deliver accountability without falling apart. Final verdicts are not failures of democracy. They are evidence of democracy's ability to conclude, correct, and continue. The ability to reach an ending is not weakness, it's strength. The real test begins now, not in courtrooms, but in how society moves forward, with patience or rage, with accountability or excuses, with an eye on the future or stuck in the noise of the present. Thank you for listening. Now go think about what you're going to do with what you've learned. That's what really matters. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. If this made you think, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Stay informed, stay grounded, stay focused on what truly matters.